Wellness plans. So we're going to look at what a wellness plan might look like, and not so much make one because everybody's is going to look different, but talk about the anatomy of a wellness plan and what kind of things you might include and how you might do it and what might work for you. So you could go old school and physical and do 3x5 cards. You could laminate those 3x5 cards and put a hole in the corner and put them on a metal ring, or you could make lists on your phone of things that would fit in your wellness plan, or you could record it and play it for yourself when you need it. You could include something different, a different thought for each one of these puzzle pieces, or just some general ideas. So we're just going to talk about things that you might want to include. Basically, your wellness plan is about getting back to basics. In the past, what has helped you? And so that's why you do this as you go along, and you can always add things to this as you go through things. So these things can be after a traumatic event, or it could just be after the stress of doing your job for X number of years, or a particularly bad week or something like that. So we're just going to look at some basic components of this. And so food, the kind of things that we say after we do a crisis response, that food is fuel for your body. And when you're really stressed, it's really important to make sure that you're being careful about what kind of fuel you use. And what this consists of at its core, what's best are carbs, which provide energy, protein, which keeps your energy high, and fat, which makes you feel full. So for example, often you, especially when you're stressed, you may crave things that are comfort food. And so that may be French fries. French fried are potatoes, so they're carbs, but they're also deep fried, so they're not particularly helpful. A better alternative might be a baked potato, which you could then put stuff in, but the baked potato, you're still getting the carbs, and put some protein in it, put some shredded chicken in it or something like that, and or some vegetables and that kind of stuff to make that healthier. Or take one thing, if you've got to have the French fries, then eat a salad with the French fries or something like that. Ways to both give yourself the comfort food but also make it a little bit healthier. And so always looking at small steps and not big total immediate life change kind of things. Maybe replace one thing that's not so healthy with something that is healthy. Another thing that people often go for when they're thinking of comfort food is something like macaroni and cheese. And so you can actually make macaroni and cheese healthier. You can put vegetables in it, you can put meat in it, stuff like that. So you might be able to trick yourself into thinking you're getting the comfort food, but you're also getting some protein and some carbs and things like that that are more healthy. Let's talk about sleep for a minute. Sleep is very important and very underrated. I remember hearing people say you can sleep when you die. And I remember thinking, and you might hasten that process if you don't sleep. I've always been really protective of my sleep. So one of the main things is to stop caffeine at least 8 to 10 hours before bedtime. And that's probably a minimum amount, but trying to be realistic because we know that caffeine is a staple. So for people who work afternoons or midnights, if you expect that you're going to work and then go home and go to sleep fairly soon, that probably means having a cup of coffee or having something with caffeine in it at the beginning of your shift and then switching to something without caffeine. It also means creating a routine for bedtime, which could include things like reading or taking a shower or something like that. The reading should be in a book, because one thing that we know about cell phones and those kinds of things, devices that you read on, is to be careful about the blue screen time that you have, because blue screens are mimic daylight. And so that may make your brain think that it's time to get up instead of time to go to bed, and that may affect what kind of sleep you have. This is a study particularly or specifically on police and sleep. And it showed that less than 6 hours of sleep makes you more susceptible to health problems. And then all the shift work that safety service people do just makes that worse. Doing back-to-back shifts, so a situation where you might do days for 2 weeks and then afternoons for 2 weeks and then midnights for 2 weeks or something like that actually makes that worse, is actually worse than if you just spend your career doing midnights. And then car accidents are the second leading cause of death in police officers. And so one of the thoughts about that is that people may be falling asleep at the wheel because they didn't get good sleep. And then sleep and Alzheimer's disease, this study showed that sleep deprivation increases this protein, which is associated with Alzheimer's, the tau protein. And actually, I just in the last couple days saw a study, which I didn't really dig into the research, but showed that less than 6 hours a night of sleep can help people develop or may indicate that people may develop Alzheimer's. Hydration. First of all, sitting at a computer can dry your eyes out. And when we talk about hydration, we mean water. Always water, water and water and water. Caffeine and alcohol, sometimes people think because they're liquid, they actually help you stay hydrated. And there's a little bit of truth in that. You can use things that have caffeine or alcohol in them to a degree, as a percentage of the liquid that you take in that helps you stay or get hydrated. But if you count on that for too much of your hydration, those things are actually dehydrating. So again, when we're thinking about taking small steps and just doing a little bit at a time, just if you want to swap out 1 cup of coffee for a bottle of water, or else at the beginning of your shift, get a cup of coffee and a bottle of water, and don't let yourself go back and get another cup of coffee until you've consumed the bottle of water. And same thing with alcohol. If it's your habit to go home and have a beer after work, if that's part of your routine when you get home, then maybe have a glass of water first before having a beer or something like that, and just kind of swap out a little bit of those kind of things for water, which we know is hydrating. And then the other part of that is that caffeine and alcohol also interfere with sleep. They interfere with the REM sleep, which is the restful sleep that you need. Moving. So we know that everybody in your job is generally sitting in front of a computer, in front of screens for 8, 10, or 12 hours. And studies have shown that sitting is the new smoking. So, and that has an effect on your physical and mental health. So it's important to try and figure out ways to move. And move could be exercise, or it could be just getting up and moving. So these are a couple of ways that in your job you can get more movement in. So a standing desk could be helpful because standing is not the new sitting and is not the new smoking. So if you are able to stand at your desk for a while, maybe stand for an hour and then sit for an hour or something like that, or do some exercises at your desk or on your lunch, or if you get coffee breaks, get up and actually move, take a walk on your breaks instead of doing other sedentary things that you might do. This link has some desk exercises that you can do during your day. And then the last one, get up and walk to the bathroom. This is a side benefit of keeping yourself hydrated, is that you'll have to get up and go to the bathroom. So believing that you have control over your life is, people who believe they have control over their lives tend to be happier. And so part of that is recognizing what you have control over and what you don't can make you happier in life and happier in your job. When I first started many, many years ago, there was a guy that was a couple of years ahead of me that I knew. And from the time that he started, so when I started, he was maybe 2, 3 years into his career, which, ended up being 25 or 30 years or something like that. So from day one, when I first met him, he could tell you how many years, months, weeks, and days also there was until retirement. Now, I understand that when you get to the last couple of years, year or two, I just saw on Facebook where somebody said they had 200 working days left until they could retire. I understand that a little bit, but if you're doing this for your whole career, there's a couple things that you're doing. One of those things is you're dwelling on something that you have no control over, because there's this many years and this many months and this many weeks and this many days, whether you think about it or not, but you're just dwelling on something that is going to be negative. And then the other piece of that is, if you're that unhappy in your job, there, you have control over that. So let go of the things that you don't have control over, figure out what the things are that you do have control of, and work to make yourself happier with that, to be more positive. Writing, journaling, there's several ways to do this. You can write things and then you can immediately burn it or rip it up and throw it away, or you can keep it and you never have to read it again if you don't want to, or you can go back, and this can be part of your what has worked in the past. If you write down what you were dealing with and then how it got better, and sometimes that can be helpful as part of people's wellness plan. But writing it down, like dwelling on the bad things, maybe you need to once a year write, I've got 20 years and 10 months and 3 weeks to go before I can retire, and then let it go. Write it down and let it go. A lot has happened over the last year that is really worthy of concern. So again, what can we focus and what can we control and what do we need to let go of? Another thing that agencies have been doing is forming peer support teams. This is not something that people do instead of engaging their local CISM team. This is in addition. So usually what happens is they find people in the agency who are interested, who have an interest in this kind of thing, and then get them training, which would usually include, at the minimum, the ICISF class in assisting individuals in crisis, which is all about doing one-on-ones and that kind of thing. And then also some other training, which may include mental health first aid, for example. And so that's just kind of a different take on that, in individuals helping individuals, and also talks about how to recognize if somebody that you work with or somebody who requests services might be suicidal, and identifying that kind of stuff. And then this could be, often what happens is that a department uses this team for individuals that ask for services or ask to reach out to the peer support team and want to talk to somebody. And then if a department feels that debriefing is needed, then they call their local CISM team. In our Washtenaw County CISM team, there are people who are members of peer support teams in their own agencies, and they do both. They do work in both. Sometimes people are part of the peer team and are not part of our CISM team. So it's a good support for people, for individuals, and a good supplement to the local CISM team. At its core, there are 5 antidotes for excess stress. And these are the things that we've talked about. So structure for chaos, writing it down, being mindful, thinking for excess emotion, trying to figure out what's going on, which can include writing, which talking about it is helpful and includes both talking about it to people that are friends or colleagues or family members, and also sometimes can be professionals that can be helpful, just because they are professionals and there's no two-way street. You're just there to talk about what's going on in your life for the whole time. Understanding for loss of control. So this can be in part understanding what you have control of and what you don't. And then action for helplessness. Sometimes just doing something makes us feel more like we're in control of what's going on. Being a good dispatcher is not an absence of fear, but the ability to control fear and learn effective ways to cope. So, in other words, learning resilience. This is, there are several of these out there, but I kind of like this one, 911 Dispatcher, 10 Commandments. And then there's that one. There's Michael Scott's version of how he does this job because he's dead inside. And then there are my dispatch commandments, and there's 11 because I think all of these are important. Number one is my own biggest personal pet peeve is hearing somebody say, I'm just a dispatcher. And then trust your gut, but pay attention because things change. So don't make assumptions. Your job is to bring everybody back in at the end of the shift that went out at the beginning of the shift, and to help people who call needing assistance, and know that you do that to the best of your ability, which may not be that everything comes out the way that you want it to. Keep your sense of humor, keep your compassion. You're not dead inside. If you feel like you're dead inside and nothing gets to you, you may feel that way for years, and then something might. It's just, and then again, it might not, but you're not dead inside. Remember that none of them know what you know. Bring your lunch or at least some snacks just in case. Never say the Q word, never assume, and be proud of what you do because not everybody can do what you do. And these are some important points about the limits of your being a superhero. You're responsible for your task, but not the outcomes. You're not all powerful. There will always be more need than resources. Be careful how you measure success. There was, we responded to a school where a student had died by suicide, and one of the board of directors had prided himself on the fact that there were no deaths by suicide at that school. And the thing is that you really can't measure success with something that you have no control over. And so be careful what you look at in terms of success. Value the small things. Remember that you are as important to the mission as what you do. And don't try on people's pain. Don't take them home with you. And remember to take time to care for your spirit, emotions, and body so there'll be something left to give. And here's my contact information. Thank you, and have a good day.